Good afternoon, everybody. This is the City of Desert Hot Springs special meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 for the 1 p.m. here in this. Give it a second, see if we can correct this.
This is a test. This is only a test of the emergency broadcast system.
Testing. Our volume's really loud. Testing. Is there anybody controlling it today?
It's low on my end.
And no, there's nobody.
Okay, so it might be that. So we'll try to talk softly. All right, we'll start over. This is the City of Desert Hot Springs special meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. This is 1 p.m. We are 4 members of the council are present in the council chambers, and we have one council member, Roger Nunez, who's via teleconference. He has posted his location in Moreno Valley, where he is stationed right now for work. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Betts.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner.
Present.
Councilmember Nunez.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Pai. Here. And Mayor Mattis.
Present. Please stand and join me in pledging to our flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Being that this is a special meeting, we'll consider any public comments. All special meeting public comments are considered on the agenda. So any public comments stay on any items or any general public comments, you can come forth and make those comments now. Just state your name.
Hello there. This is on item number 2 today. Honorable Mayor and Council members, my name is Brendan Steidel, resident of Palm Springs and Marketing Manager for Desert Care Network. I'm speaking today as a representative of Desert Regional Medical Center. We appreciate your engagement in the process by which the Healthcare District, the Desert Healthcare District, is working towards a lease renewal with Desert Regional Medical Center that would be a potential ballot measure in November's election. And we appreciate and thank the city manager, mayor, and council members for allowing us to provide additional information to you in advance of any decision the council makes. We understand the area of concern is a non-compete clause provision, which has been in the current lease for 27 years without question. This provision has a very narrow scope and applies only to acute care hospital licensed services. We know you have a goal to increase access to equitable healthcare and bring additional healthcare services to the residents of Desert Hot Springs. The proposed lease will not hinder that ability or the ability for the district to provide grant funds for a variety of services. The district has been working on language that more clearly defines the intent of the provision. The new language clarifies the district's ability to continue its support of nonprofit organizations to expand access to healthcare in the Coachella Valley. The language also ensures the long-term stability of Desert Regional Medical Center. We view this as a win-win, and we look forward to bringing the proposal before the voters. The proposal's language recognizes that the district and the people it represents have a mutual interest in ensuring that Desert Regional can operate successfully. Without this protection, it could jeopardize the ability for the district to provide equitable hospital care for everyone the district serves. The healthcare district has a fiduciary duty to protect its interest in the hospital they own while a lease remains in place until 2057. Revenue from the new lease, in total approximately $650 million, will allow the district to continue to provide grants to community organizations and fulfill its mission to serve the healthcare needs of the entire community. The new language changes none of that. In addition to the lease payments, tenant Desert Regional will be funding the state-required seismic retrofit work. This cost is currently estimated to exceed $220 million. Not a penny of that will come from the healthcare district, nor will it come from the taxpayers of this district. Again, no taxpayer money or district bonds will be required for this work. Our Desert Healthcare District, our Desert Care Network serves the largest amount of uninsured and underinsured people in our valley. We pride ourselves on providing care for all people in an equitable manner, regardless of insurance or income level. The current lease between the district and tenant began in May 1997, and it saved a hospital from a financial crisis. And since then, we have made important investments in the healthcare of our community, including establishing the only Level 1 trauma center, allowing the district to turn its focus to the $100 million in grants it has provided to nonprofits in our community. This is an example of a successful public-private partnership that we would like to continue. Again, we thank you for exploring all information available on this subject in order to make an informed decision. We thank you for your time today and for the work you do for the residents of Desert Hot Springs and the entire Coachella Valley. Thank you.
Sir. Any other public comments today? All right, we'll close public comments and we'll move to item number 1. The first item number 1 is under our administrative calendar. Award construction agreement for the Mission Lakes Boulevard and Little Morongo Road resurfacing project. Mr. Porras isn't here, but Mr. Haker is.
It's a treat. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Riverside County Transportation Department selected and awarded Vance Corporation as the lowest responsive bidder for the Mission Lakes Boulevard and Little Morongo Road surfacing project. The scope of work is limited to work within Riverside County and not within the City of Desert Hot Springs city limits. Based on Municipal Code 3.44.105C, the city may piggyback off of the Riverside County competitive bid and award process and contract with the same contractor utilizing the same unit cost. The city met with the contractor and Riverside County and requested a proposal from the contractor to complete the asphalt resurfacing beyond the Riverside County jurisdiction and extend the work within the city limits for a complete road rehab project. The city received a proposal from Vance Corporation in the amount of $549,575.08. The scope of work includes road resurfacing, striping, and as-needed utility adjustments along Mission Lakes Boulevard from Clubhouse Boulevard to Little Morongo Road and along Little Morongo Road between Mission Lakes and Augusta Avenue. Staff is recommending City Council authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute the construction agreement for the Mission Lakes Boulevard and Little Morongo Road resurfacing project with Vance Corporation in the amount not to exceed $549,575.08, plus a 10% contingency of $50,000. Plus a 10% contingency and $50,000 for as-needed utility adjustments for a total budget of $654,532.59. This concludes my report. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Appreciate it. There's quite a few of us council members who live in that area, and I think as soon as we saw the signage go up, we all questioned the same thing. Years ago, I reached out to CVAG and asked them to, put a strong letter together with the county to talk about these projects. When the county has a project on joining jurisdictions, why don't we partner? And for some reason that got lost. So I think I'm going to push that again at the executive level, that we do that again. I understand their executive teams have changed at the county level. Maybe that's part of the issue, but it just makes sense not to do a half road and do a full road. And if we have the opportunity to save money, why wouldn't we? So open up the comments. Mr. Nunez, anything?
Just a couple of questions, Nick, if I may. So I just wanted to make it clear, I had a couple of residents call me. We're not doing any kind of off-site improvements like sidewalk on our end. Neither is the county of Riverside, correct?
Correct. This is just a road resurfacing project.
Okay, so we are doing striping, correct?
Yes, striping is included in their proposal.
Okay. I would like to see, when we get a chance, and I guess the mayor can handle that when he meets with the county folks, is what's the plan for this area once the city starts growing? Do they plan on widening the road? Are they planning to do sidewalks for this gated community once we start growing? I just want to see we have a future plan. That way we can start preparing for it all on our end also. That's it. Thank you, Nick.
And for the record, where are we pulling this from, the financial?
Yeah, and so just to be clear, it's not coming from the general fund. Yeah, I think and I misspoke earlier when I spoke with Councilmember Betts. I said Measure A it was coming from. It's actually coming from SB1.
SB1.
And we were able to backfill originally where we had SB1 funds allocated to. We're using now backfilling with Amazon paying their diff fees, backfilling the SB1 funds with the diff fees. So that's how that was the chain of events.
Perfect. Ms. Pye, anything? Mr. Gardner, Mr. Betts?
I just want to thank the city manager for getting on this so quickly. I think as all of us did, we're driving down the road and we see the signs that went up before 4th of July. And we go, okay, well, we understand how these roads work. Half is county and half of us is us. And Frank said he'd get on that right away, and he did, as a little bit of wait and see if this was actually going to happen. So staff's done a great job. It's nice to see when you guys figure out these pots of money that you can take and get the stuff paid for. It's good that we have those pots. This, I think, was a bit of a surprise. I mean, the county going in there, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if you guys were aware of it or what, the communication is with staff and the county. But, we had that situation where Indian was paved by the county, but then as soon as you get to our city limit, it turns into a rough road again, and we might have been able to have the same opportunity there. So I guess what I'd like to say is, thanks for your diligence on getting this one taken care of, and if for the future, if we could get in, if we aren't, to get in better communication with the county so that we know every project they're planning to do here, and as we have the money to take advantage of these economies of scale when we partner with them. So thank you. You guys did a great job on this.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may just add, and thank you, for that support, but Mr. Porras and Nick both, were the ones on the ground to make this happen. So I just want to thank them for getting it done.
Good job. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the funding or the agreement for the Mission Lakes.
Motion by Mr. Gardner, second by Mr. Betts. Please vote. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll do a roll call vote because we're online. Go ahead, roll call.
Councilmember Betts?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pye?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunez?
Yes.
And Mayor Mattis?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next issue is a Desert Healthcare District lease agreement with tenant that proposes a non-compete. So before we start, this came up in the last council meeting, and we had talked about possibly a resolution, and it's moved very fast, and we had this opportunity today after, working quite diligently on medical services for our community over these last few years. It's something close to my heart, and I didn't think very far into it until this morning. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which I always do, and all of a sudden light bulbs go on. My wife works for Eisenhower in the emergency room. I know it's a long stretch, but being the silly season as it is, and I'm going to caution myself on the fact that I could have a financial interest in however this turns out in the future, and so I'm going to recuse myself from this. I will give the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem Pye to finish the meeting, and since it is our last item, I don't believe there's any reason unless anyone thinks I need to stick around in the building.
Mr. Mayor, if I may too, my wife works for Desert Hospital, which is the subject of the matter. So I asked that same question, should I recuse myself also?
All right, well, I'm going to recuse myself, and Mr. Nunez, are you saying you're going to recuse yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you'll have the three of you to make the decision.
Are there any comments?
We need a staff report?
No?
Okay.
You two asked for it. I'm assuming you read it.
Okay.
So would you like me to give some
Go ahead.
So as the mayor mentioned, it was discussed at the last meeting that there was some interest that the council wanted to weigh in on the public negotiations with Desert Healthcare District. and tenant. And just by definition, just so the council is aware, and I know you probably are, but maybe to the benefit of the community. So the resolution, how it's put together, the whereases are just the background information. What is resolved is what you want to do. And so from the manager's perspective, a lot of things that I've heard, it was really just clarity, right? Clarity in the language as it relates to the lease agreement. So that is how the resolution is at least proposed to you. What is being resolved is, the request is clarity within the language. So if you want to change that in any way, that's how it currently is positioned. The question is what position, if any, do you want to take, on this? From the city's perspective, it's access to equitable health care. I think the thing that I've heard the most about within the city is clinics and primary care. And those are the two things that are of need to our residents of our community. And in investigation and talking, at least from the district's perspective, funding of any of those services would not be precluded in the language. That would be something that they could fund. The key language is truly is the regulated licensed services. So if there is a service that is out there that is in competition to the regulated licensed services, then that's where the question comes into play, is if it can be funded through those lease payments. However, on the flip side of it, so that's from the city's perspective, but on the flip side of it, I get the argument that is out there, good government, I guess, perspective of it. Should a private entity, if you will, tell a government agency how it spends its money? I mean, that's the other side of it, the arguments that we hear. So with that, I'm going to conclude my comments and just wanted to explain the resolution and look for guidance from the council.
What? Okay. I've been taking a look at this for some time, and we had the initial public meeting on this with the healthcare district just about a month ago, and the language back then was very strong in the non-compete clause area. And I'm going to disagree with our speaker earlier that while this may have been in place for previous years, it's problematic, I think, going forward, and let me explain why. And in the meantime, I know that Desert Healthcare District is working on revising this language, and to the extent that they can, that would make this a lot more palatable. But my concern, as an elected representative of the city of Desert Hot Springs and my constituents here across the city, is that, for instance, if we want to attract another urgent care or other facility out here, it's going to take some help. The city manager and I had a long visit and tour of the DAP facilities here, and we'd love to see them expand out here more. And the DAP folks said, well, we're going to need some help doing that. And it's the amount of help that's far beyond what the city could do with our budget. So we would be looking for funds elsewhere for that. And whether it's DAP or anybody else that wants to come out here, we're going to be relying on those funds that are taxpayer dollars. They're part of our property tax that goes to fund and operate the hospital, and which was why the district was created in the first place. And let me just say this too, I'm not at all anti-tenant. I'm not at all anti-selling the hospital to tenant. I believe that makes a lot of sense given the current financial constraints and what needs to be done with the hospital to bring it up to seismic codes. But we're locking ourselves into a 30-year block of confusing language, if this language stands the way it does now, of whether or not DAP, the Desert Healthcare District, can take the proceeds from the hospital sale, which is roughly $650 million, plus the $300 or so million that'll come in over the course of that lease from taxpayers, almost $1 billion, and be able to use that for providing healthcare services in our community and other areas across this valley. And I'll only quote from the current language as of, I haven't seen an update yet. Now, they keep telling me we're going to update this today, but so far, the current language says, notwithstanding the foregoing, nothing in this agreement shall prevent the district from collaborating or jointly funding with other acute care hospitals within the boundaries of the district in support of projects designated to improve access to health care for district residents, as long as such projects are outside the scope of the general hospital's license and are provided free of charge to the community or otherwise do not generate revenue that is directed on the financial statements of the granted hospital. The lessor, which case being the district, shall provide written notice to the lessee of any potential activity, program, or service which has been submitted to the lessor through the grant application process, which lessor considers in violations of the covenant of this contract, which notice shall include applications and other written material. The lessee shall have 30 days from receipt of said notice to review and grant or withhold consent in writing to the proposed activity. This tells me that we are, in a sense, if the district wanted to fund something, have to ask tenant's permission to do that. Tenant is a for-profit corporation headquartered in Texas. Our district elected officials that govern this district are better suited to make that decision, I believe, than tenant. Now, if the idea is to keep another entity from building a full-service hospital in Desert Hot Springs or elsewhere in the district, that's one thing. And maybe we can, if they change the language to that, I think that would solve all of this problem. But I think right now, as it stands today, this language is far too broad. Eisenhower, a not-for-profit corporation here, what if Eisenhower wanted to build an urgent care in Desert Hot Springs? It would be fantastic for our residents. They needed some help doing that. Tenant or the operator could veto that. Loma Linda could come in. Keck Medical, UW, all of those providers could be offering services here with some help from taxpayer dollars, which is what those taxpayer dollars are designed to do. But we're giving a bit too much veto authority, I think, to the operator. Yes, this provision has been in the contract since tenant has been managing the hospital. We haven't faced that problem yet, but now we're locking ourselves into 30 years of this. And in 30 years from now, whatever the math is on that, 54, when the lease is expired and tenant owns the hospital, then the taxpayers here could do that and be free from those restrictions. I think that the bulk of us on this dais will be dead and buried by those days, but I think we need to really take a close look at this. I understand doing a non-compete clause for building a full-service hospital, but that's about as far as I can go in supporting any sort of a non-compete clause. So what I'm going to ask my fellow council members up here to do is to approve this resolution, let them know where we stand, and let them, they recognized, I think, that this non-compete clause has raised some concern, and they're working on it, and I will give them credit for working on it. I still think it needs a little bit more work, and I think a resolution from this body will help urge them to do that. That's all I've got.
Mr. Bitts.
Thank you. So when I brought this up in my council comments at our last council meeting, I was hoping for this meeting. I'm glad we've had it and that we're having this discussion now. Gary, those were very good comments. I don't want to repeat them, but you're spot on some particular areas there. The City Council of Rancho Mirage expressed significant concerns about the non-compete agreement included in the proposed tenant healthcare contract with Desert Healthcare District. And as I talked to the mayor of Rancho Mirage and others and talked to the director at Desert Healthcare District, I got a pretty clear understanding of what that agreement was about. And I think the public speaker here confirmed that when he stepped up to the podium. Rancho Mirage's position, their letter, and their resolution is instructive, I think, to our city council. Rancho Mirage highlighted that such an agreement could limit competition, potentially hindering other healthcare providers from entering the market and improving services in the region. And this has got a very negative impact on our city. And it's not just primary care that we're going to be looking to get. It's not just going to be, another medical provider like a doctor's office. We very much would like to have something like an Eisenhower urgent care in our city. And the definition of that, as the speaker said, is it's an acute care facility, which this contract prohibits. Eisenhower Urgent Care is an acute care facility. That's the definition. So it would very much prevent that. And as we attract, as we seek to attract these other providers, they're very likely going to say, hi, if you want this in the community, we're going to need some help. And we would quite naturally turn to Desert Healthcare District with the many millions of dollars that it has and say, hi, we want some help here. As this contract is written, the non-compete clause in the contract would require Desert Healthcare District to get the permission of tenant on any such funding that we would request, and tenant could and very likely would veto that funding, saying that, hey, that's going to be in competition with us. So Eisenhower competes with tenant. In all likelihood, tenant would not approve with Eisenhower, or, as Gary mentioned, the other providers, Loma Linda and otherwise. Rancho Mirage addressed this pretty clearly in a letter and a resolution. It says, we have recently passed a resolution formally objecting to the non-compete provision as it seems to severely restrict the district from performing, using taxpayer funds, or participating in health-related activities that compete with Tenet Healthcare or any other Tenet Healthcare affiliate. It's really clear. It says exactly what the problem is with this measure. So it's not acceptable. The contract as written will most definitely negatively impact our city's efforts to provide access to quality health care for our community. I think it's maybe far out that one day we would have a hospital here, but I understand it's reasonable to say, we draw that line, but I think if we did have a hospital here, you're not going to say no. I'm not, and I don't want that restricted either, as much as that might not be reasonable. But an Eisenhower urgent care or some other urgent care is very reasonable. And to the extent that it restricts that, it's not right. We're allowing a private entity to determine what Desert Healthcare is allowing a private entity to determine what their operational funding, what their funding will be. So I'm of the position that if Desert Healthcare does not take out the non-compete, our city should look at whatever legal means we have to block that agreement or to rescind it, whatever ends up being the case, and joining with other cities that are similarly inclined. And I think our best course, I'm not clear on the resolution that our city manager put forward, but I think our best course is simply to do a search and replace, putting Desert Hot Springs where Rancho Mirage appears, and copying their resolution and saying this is what we want to pass here today. Just one that says we're concerned about a language isn't strong enough. We all are well versed on these issues and know them well, and we understand what the problem is. And Rancho Mirage has done a good job putting that together. I say we need to join Rancho Mirage's efforts and whoever else is similarly inclined, and I know there's other cities that are looking at the same thing, and say, no, this is a bad deal. I don't know if I want to, you know what? I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to go astray of the conversation. So anyhow, I really, if it's time to make a motion, I'm ready to, but obviously the chair will let us know when that time is. But if I was going to make a motion, it would be that our resolution matches Rancho Mirage, but simply substituting Desert Hot Springs and any other pertinent information for wherever their names appear. Yes?
Are you making a motion, or will you allow me to state my position?
I would say my motion would be if I was going to make one right now.
Okay, you said that's what it would be. I disagree. What he said and what I understood, did anyone talk to our healthcare district person that's on, Carol, that's on Desert Healthcare Group?
I've talked to the district director, the executive officer of Desert Healthcare District. I had a conversation with him, a meeting with him.
Oh, okay. No, I was asking something else. Anyway, what is there is nonprofit, and I believe that they have contributed to DAP. The non-compete clause is a technical thing, and it is something that is in business contracts. I would be upset if Tenet did not have a non-compete clause. I would be concerned if they did not have that. I understand about putting in another hospital, but then you're talking about someone that's going to make revenue, which is in competition of Tenet. And for that reason, and it's been there. Currently, it is in the agreement that Desert Healthcare District has approved. And as long as it's nonprofit, and if something happens, they have to ask Tenet, I'm okay with that. And I'm not for the resolution.
Let me clarify one thing, if I could, from following up on Mr. Betts. Rancho's resolution was adopted before several current changes in there, and their resolution references changes that in the proposed contract that are not there anymore. So I wouldn't be able to support taking word for word Rancho's one and just substituting our city in there. I think ours is drafted enough that it gives some wiggle room, which I would hope that Ms. Pye would be able to support, to allow for modifications to the non-compete clause that would make both Tenet and those of us that are concerned with expanding healthcare in the valley more comfortable with it. And I think this resolution that's drafted by the city manager does that. That being said, I understand your concerns, Mayor Pro Tem Pye, I really do, and I recognize that, but I think the current language in the proposal is still far too broad. And if they want a simple non-compete there, and I recognize that about building a specific hospital or doing anything that's going to directly compete with a full-service hospital, that I understand, and I would not have a problem leaving that in the proposed lease agreement. What I still have a concern with is how broad it is written now. And to me, it's so broad now that it potentially could affect the delivery of healthcare in this valley if other providers wanted to come in and need help like we need here in Desert Hot Springs, that we wouldn't be able to, as a city, to do. So I would hope that the current resolution is broad enough to make you feel a little bit more comfortable with that. And I know you and I were planning to go to the public meeting tonight and see if we have updated language, updated language on the proposed contract. And then never forget, too, that regardless of what we decide here as a council and what happens down the road, the Desert Healthcare District will then take the proposed agreement, whether it has a non-compete or not, or whether it's narrowed or not, and put it on the ballot, and all of us and every resident in the valley will have an opportunity to vote on that come this November. So, and that may very well be a driving point in how people make their decision this fall when they're standing there with their ballot on their kitchen counter and filling in the little ovals. So, in that case, I would have a hard time doing that search and replace that you want. If they hadn't changed the language already twice since Rancho did that, I can understand that. But now it's like, I think we're broad enough now that even if they come up with something later this afternoon, we could still go in with and make a cogent argument that the non-compete clause is problematic.
So I'd like to respond to that directly here. A couple things. First, are we certain there's going to be a ballot, or are they just considering it?
No, it has to go to the ballot.
Okay, so the next thing is here is we want the ballot to go out the way we want it. The main point I'm going to make here is I'm looking over the resolution that's included in the staff report, and it says, now therefore, the city council of the city of Desert Hot Springs does resolve as follows, but there's nothing specific as to what our recitals are. So it's up to us here to hammer out, if we're going to do anything on this, what we would say, and in its most simple form, we could say that, just reaching for language here on the spot, any non-compete that restricts our city's ability to contract and receive funding from Desert Healthcare District, even if they compete with Desert Healthcare District, we object to. So I think that clarifies your position, and if you don't want to go through and do this as a, copy theirs, we could at least, on that main point that, and that doesn't take into account whatever the language is, we're saying it can't restrict our ability, for example, to have an acute care facility like an urgent care, like an Eisenhower urgent care, or whoever else wants to come in and set up urgent care, and that we would expect we could go get our tax dollars from Desert Healthcare District and use our tax dollars that way. Desert Healthcare, let's go say, Desert Healthcare's district job is to set up to make sure there's health care in this district. And they've partnered with Tenet. They could partner with anybody. They could go to UC Irvine, they could go to anybody else. Tenet apparently has them in a very difficult situation. Maybe if they hadn't spent $100 million on charitable events and things outside of this issue, put that into the hospital might have been their first priority. Everybody loves those contributions. The money that went to CV Link is, I guess, important. But the here and the now is that they're over a barrel because they don't have the money to take care of the hospital, and Tenet does. And so because of that stranglehold that Tenet has on them, they've put this clause in there, a non-compete. But we're not in their agreement. We're not part of them. We're not Desert Healthcare District in this agreement with them. And so anyhow, back to the main point, Gary. If you want to come up with some language, I hazarded it already, but there's got to be something in here. Either we do no resolution, or we can put a simple sentence in there that says, I would suggest, we are not in agreement, we oppose any non-compete clause that would restrict a provider of our choosing from setting up in Desert Hot Springs and us being able to receive funding from our funding from Desert Healthcare District. So
if I may just add just one real quick thing. So I had the city attorney check, just so the body is aware, since two recused, it has to be a unanimous vote or there's no action. And Councilmember Betts is correct. It was very generic as it relates to what's resolved. It's just clarity. So if you wanted to add more specificity, you can.
So if I can, that was the point I was going to make too. And Mr. Betts, I recognize your point, and they're all very valid, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. The final whereas in this proposed resolution says the City of Desert Hot Springs encourages the board to craft language that provides for equitable access to care in our valley. That can be interpreted a lot of ways, and we are all free as individual council members to encourage our elected officials on the board to act in a tighter restriction such as what you are suggesting. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that there's only 3 of us up here and it's going to be all unanimous. And I respect Mayor Pro Tem Pai's position, and I'm trying to find a way that will get you to where we can all agree and pass something so that the Desert Healthcare District knows that we are concerned about this issue and would like for them to keep going with that. So, have I got you over the hump?
Well, Gary, that language is pretty weak.
No.
I think based on your comments, the opening comments, which I found to be very good and I agree with, I'm going to say if we go with this, we might as well do nothing. Okay, we might as well do no resolution if we're going to go with something that's that weak.
It sounds like we're going to go with that anyway because Mayor Pro Tem Pai is still opposed even to this version of it, so.
Okay, well, I'm at the point where I feel so strongly about this. I would like to have our legal counsel explore if this is even legal for them to restrict the use of our funds through this agreement. And I know there's other people looking at that avenue also, and maybe we would go join in those legal efforts, file suit against the district if that's necessary. But this is not, this is no small matter. And, you know, this is one of those things where we have to set the course. Somebody 5 years down the road, not 30, 10 years down the road, is going to say, what the heck did these guys lock us into? Okay, that's where we're at. And so, Gary, I think...
No, I don't disagree with you there. I'm just vote counting.
Well, sometimes I'm sure you...
I
Go ahead, sorry.
I understand that. But if you put in if you do not put in a non-compete clause with what tenant is doing, the 600,000 plus, then you're jeopardizing us. You're jeopardizing us with tenant. And the non-compete clause is a normal thing in business. It's not something that was just made up, and it wasn't made up 30 years ago when the Desert Healthcare District said okay, and they're saying okay now. I was told that it does not include nonprofit, and it depends on how you do nonprofits. He said it was nonprofit, so it does not change my opinion.
Gary, if I suggest sometimes you leave these meetings and you say, you know what, I'm going to vote the right way, the way that I know this needs to go, and if I lose, I go home and I lose. And in this case, if we don't have a unanimous vote, I'm prepared to say, okay, we'll just have to go fight another day. But Jan, I really think that you know, a non-compete in this situation is not ordinary. You know, non-competes are ordinary in business. You know, I had one when I sold my company, but there wasn't public taxpayers funding that non-compete, and that's the difference here. And I want to be able to have access to my money down there without this agreement, and there's no way I can agree to it. And this sentence here, Gary, I think you can agree with me, is not strong enough to match the concerns that you expressed or that I've expressed. So I've said all I can say on this one.
Okay, I think we're at an impasse, and I will be able to sleep tonight.
Well, I wasn't saying you wouldn't. I'm just talking for myself.
Well, just for the sake, before we adjourn, I will make a motion that we adopt the resolution as drafted.
I make amend the motion that we adopt the resolution as written, but adding that there shall be no non-compete that will prohibit Desert Hot Spring from seeking and having the ability to acquire funding from Desert Healthcare District for a nonprofit, a for-profit, acute care, anybody that wants to come in here and provide medical services for our city, and going on along here, so that tenant isn't determining our fate and our future.
How about a slight language change on that to where it says, whereas the City of Desert Hot Springs encourages the board, or let's change that to, whether Desert Hot Springs asked the board to craft language that does not include a non-compete clause that would restrict the district's ability to help subsidize health care across the valley.
Okay, I'll go with that if that's what you're seconding. I'll
I'm
make that my
seconding
motion
that
and
if
you
you-
make that the second. Okay, I got you. I'm with you.
For-profit or non-profit? He said non-profit.
I said
Yeah.
profit and nonprofit.
So, and I left both of that. That doesn't say any, there's nothing in there. It just says restricts health care.
Do you accept that amendment, the two of you?
So basically, we're telling them to take the non-compete out.
Yeah.
I'm agree with you on that.
So,
You want to move?
did you get that drafted
I
down
think I did
enough,
move it,
Gerald?
and then I'm interpreting this as I moved what Gary just said.
Okay, so I'm
And he's
asking
second.
you to,
Oh, is that what you want me to do? I wasn't, sorry about that.
Okay.
Did you get all that, Gerald?
and, Gerald, are you clear?
Well, so and we may need some clarification, assuming that it passes, because again, it needs a unanimous vote.
We can go off the audio, or we
Yeah,
can.
just go back and do the audio, what Gary just
Yep.
recited,
That's correct.
making sure that it says that we're against the non-compete, right?
So,
There we go.
I'm against, I can't do it here.
Okay, motion fails with Mayor Pro Tem Pai against.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned.